Valari was not like the others in the Galactic Council. She was younger, curious, and often questioned the stories told about humans. Many believed Earth was backward, violent, and unimportant. But Valari was not sure, so when she was assigned to observe Earth from a cloaked scout ship, she was excited. She wanted to see the truth with her own eyes. Her small ship hovered silently in low orbit, invisible to human satellites. She zoomed in on their cities, their streets, their strange habits. Humans laughed, danced, shouted, and cried so emotional, so chaotic, they built strange machines. With wheels and wings, they argued over borders and beliefs to Valari. They looked primitive until she saw what they kept hidden. One day, her sensors picked up a strange energy pulse in a desert region. Curious, she zoomed in with her long range. Cameras, she saw military trucks, men in armor, and what looked like a missile on a large launch pad. Then, without warning, the missile launched. It soared high into the sky, then came crashing down into the empty mountains. What happened next made Valari freeze in her chair. The explosion was massive, larger than anything she had ever seen. The mountain vanished in a flash of white light. A shockwave spread in all directions, flattening everything within miles from space. She could see the Earth ripple like water. Her ship shook slightly. Even though she was hundreds of kilometers away, the humans clapped and cheered below, like it was a simple test to them. It was normal. To her, it was horrifying. Valari's hands moved quickly over the controls, recording everything. This wasn't a simple bomb. It was something far more powerful. She ran a scan on the explosion zone, radiation, seismic damage, air disturbance. It matched the data of Forbidden's Council weapons. Weapons banned in the galaxy because they were too dangerous, and Earth had just used one. For practice, she remembered what her teachers once said. Humans avoid war because they are weak. Now she realized the truth. Humans avoid war because if they ever chose to fight, they wouldn't lose. They wouldn't just win. They would end it, quickly and completely. She leaned back in her seat, breathing heavily. Her heart was racing. This planet was not sleeping. It was pretending. Pretending to be small, pretending to be peaceful. But inside, they held something terrifying: restraint. She zoomed in again, trying to understand more. She watched as human soldiers loaded more weapons, ran drills, and even laughed together. They didn't look like monsters. They looked like people trying to avoid using the power they had, as if they knew the cost. Valari opened a secure file to send her first report back to the Council. But then, something strange happened to her. Ship's warning lights began to blink. Incoming signal detected. She froze. No one should be able to contact her ship, not unless they knew where she was. The message came in through a simple audio link. It was a human voice, calm, deep, and clear. "We see you," it said. "Don't worry, we're not angry. But now you understand why we don't start wars." The message ended there. No threats, no demands, just a warning. Valari stared at her screen, her hands trembling. They had seen her, tracked her, and contacted her without her knowing. She wasn't the observer anymore. She was the one being watched. She sat in silence, trying to process everything. The explosion, the human voice, the message. It all pointed to one terrifying truth. Earth was not afraid of war. Earth was just waiting. Waiting for someone foolish enough to make the first move. Valari knew she had to warn the Council. But even as she prepared her message, she wondered, would they listen? Or would they still believe humans were weak? As she looked down at the blue and green planet, now calm again, she whispered to herself, "They don't fight because they would lose. They don't fight because they would win too easily. And the galaxy has no idea how close it is to ending itself." Valari didn't sleep that night. She sat inside her dark ship, staring at Earth below. The message from the human kept playing in her mind. "We see you," it had said. No threat, no weapon, just calm confidence. And that made it worse. She decided to deeper. If Earth really had this power, there had to be more evidence. So she began to search the human data networks. She tapped into hidden satellites, spy feeds, and military servers. She used alien cloaking protocols to slip through digital firewalls. And then she found something strange. There was a hidden server buried deep in Earth's military archives. It had no name, no access points, no backdoor, only one entry key: do not open. That only made her more curious. She cracked it open slowly. Using her own translator codes, what she found shocked her: videos, documents, weapon test files, maps of destruction zones. Some files were corrupted, but the ones that worked showed something terrifying. One video showed a human weapon test on a frozen planet. A single launch melted ice across 300 kilometers. Another clip showed a black cube dropped into an ocean. Within seconds, every ship on the water vanished. No sound, no explosion, just gone. There was no explanation in the file. Just a warning: test number 42, do not replicate. She felt sick. This wasn't defense. This was extinction-level power. Her people didn't even believe in this kind of destruction. The Council had banned similar weapons centuries ago. Yet Earth had built them, tested them, and never used them. That was the scariest part. Suddenly, red lights flashed across her screen. Malware detected. Her systems were under attack. The very files she had downloaded were designed to strike back. They weren't just secrets, they were traps. Her control panel glitched. Lights dimmed. Engines stalled. She slammed her hand on the manual override. The ship powered down just in time. Isolating the virus, she sat back, breathing hard, realizing one thing: those files were meant to be found. And to scare whoever found them, she whispered, they knew someone would come. They planted those files for us. A new message appeared on her console. No sound this time, just words blinking slowly. Curiosity is dangerous, alien, but at least now you understand. Her blood ran cold. They had infected her ship, read her scan pattern, and responded in real time. She wasn't hiding anymore. Earth had known she was watching, and now they were watching her back. She thought about sending a full alert to the Council, but she paused. What if they didn't believe her? What if they came here in arrogance like she once did? They would wake something they couldn't survive. Valari tried to delete the files, but they wouldn't go. They were locked into her system, alive like digital ghosts. Each time she tried, a new message appeared. You wanted to know. Now you can't forget. She stood up from her seat and looked through the window at Earth. A beautiful planet, full of life and color. It didn't look dangerous. It looked peaceful. But now she knew the truth. Earth wasn't peaceful because it was weak. It was peaceful because it had learned the price of war. And now it had chosen silence over power. But that silence was loud, louder than any weapon. She sat down again, shaking. This mission was no longer about observation. It was a warning. A warning she had to carry back if her ship ever allowed her to leave. She whispered again to herself, Earth is not a target. Earth is the final test, and anyone who thinks otherwise won't live long enough to regret it. Valari sat in silence, afraid to move. Her ship was floating above a planet she no longer understood. She thought she was the hunter, the one observing, but now it felt like Earth had set a trap just for her, and she had walked right into it. Her screens flickered again, not from malware this time, but from something different. Intentional contact. A live signal was coming through, but it wasn't encrypted. It was open like an invitation. She hesitated, then accepted the link. The screen stayed dark, but a human voice filled the cabin. It wasn't robotic. It wasn't threatening. It was calm, steady, and haunting. Hello, the voice said. We know you're there. We let you in because we wanted you to. See, Valari's fingers hovered over the controls. She could disconnect, she could run. But something about the voice held her still. It wasn't angry. It was tired, like someone who had seen too much. You're not the first to watch us. The voice continued. But you're the first who asked why we stay quiet. That makes you different. Valari leaned forward, confused. How? Do you know my thoughts? She whispered aloud. The voice replied instantly. Because we've studied you too. She froze. Her own species didn't believe humans had space tracking tech. But clearly, Earth had far more than anyone expected. Knew. You know what this planet is? The voice asked. It's not a battlefield. It's a reminder. The screen suddenly came to life. It showed footage grainy, black and white. A battlefield, broken machines. Humans dragging wounded comrades, explosions in the background. Smoke covering the sky. She watched as a human looked directly into the camera and said, "We stopped fighting when we realized victory meant nothing if no one survived." The footage switched this time. It was modern, a massive drone army in training. AI-controlled war machines running simulations with perfect accuracy. But they weren't being used. They were sealed away, stored underground, like monsters locked in cages. "Why show me this?" Valari asked, her voice cracking. The human didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "Because someday, someone from your side will come to test us, and we won't get a second chance to explain." Valari sat back, overwhelmed. Earth had been preparing for war, but not to start it. They were preparing for someone else's mistake. She watched as more files appeared, schematics of railguns, laser nets, orbital empvings. Some were built, some were only designs. But each one was more advanced than anything in the Council's database, and none of them were active. They were waiting, just in case. "You think we're dangerous," the voice said. "But we're just careful. We've seen what happens when power is used without thought. So now, we wait." Valari didn't know what to say. She was trained to observe, not to feel, but her chest felt tight, her eyes stung. For the first time, she didn't see humans as reckless or wild. She saw them as survivors, people who had climbed out of destruction and built walls to keep it from happening again. "I will report this to the Council," she said quietly. There was a pause. Then the voice said, "Do what you must. But if they send ships, they won't find conquest. They'll find a graveyard." The screen went black, the signal ended. Silence returned to her ship, but nothing felt the same. She looked at Earth again. It still spun quietly below her, but now she saw it differently. Not a wild world, not a target, but a sleeping titan with its eyes half open, a planet that could burn galaxies, but chose to stay still. She pressed her recorder. "This is Valari of Zarn Prime," she said, her voice steady. "I have seen Earth. I have spoken to its people. They are not to be feared. They are to be respected." And in her mind, the voice echoed once more. "We don't fight because we would win. We don't fight because no one else would survive." Valari didn't send her report, not yet. Something inside her told her she hadn't seen the full picture. She needed to understand more, not just the weapons, but the people who made them. So she stayed in orbit, invisible, patient, watching Earth not as a soldier, but as a student. She zoomed in on a small village in the north. It was winter there. Snow covered the streets. Children threw snowballs, families lit fires. Elders sat near windows and watched the wind. No soldiers, no sirens, no signs of war. Just life, simple and calm. Further south, she saw a massive city full of lights and noise. Humans moved like rivers down crowded streets. They laughed, argued, danced, painted walls, fed birds, and built tall buildings. No one seemed to think about war. They were busy living. In a nearby school, a teacher stood in front of a class and asked, "What is power?" A child raised her hand and said, "It's when you have the strength to hurt someone, but choose not to." The class nodded, and the teacher smiled. Valari stared at the screen, stunned by the answer. This was the secret. Power wasn't just about weapons. It was about control, and humans had learned that. They had learned it the hard way, through pain and loss, and now they had passed that lesson to their children. She shifted her view to a military base. Soldiers marched in perfect lines, practiced drills, trained with advanced machines. But beside the base was a garden. In it, young soldiers sat in silence, reading books or meditating. One held a small dog in his lap, gently brushing its fur. Another helped a child tie his shoelaces through a fence. Valari narrowed her eyes, confused. How could creatures capable of mass destruction also be so gentle? Why build weapons if you don't plan to use them? Then she realized the weapons were not for them. They were shields, not swords. She switched to live news feeds. She expected to see military parades or threats to other planets. Instead, she saw scientists creating vaccines, engineers building clean energy systems, artists painting murals of peace, survivors of war telling their stories to crowds. One old soldier spoke through tears and said, "Peace is the prize we earned after everything we lost." Valari turned away from the screen, her hands trembling. Everything she thought she knew about Earth was wrong. The Council had taught her that humans were violent and unstable, but what she saw was something else: discipline, emotion, wisdom. A species not afraid of war, but one that had chosen not to repeat it. She played one of the older Earth transmissions, an old human leader speaking at a great hall. "If we must fight, we will," he said. "But our true strength is in the wars we avoid, not the ones we win." The crowd had stood and clapped, and the video had ended with a flag rising in the wind. She sat quietly in her chair, watching the clouds drift across the planet's surface. A voice inside her said, "They don't hide their power, they hide their reasons. They don't brag, they prepare." She opened her personal log and began recording again. "This is Valari," she said softly. "I have seen human strength, but I've also seen their hearts. They practice restraint not because they are afraid, but because they are wise. And I believe they fear themselves more than they fear others." Outside her ship, Earth spun slowly beneath her. Still quiet, still peaceful. But now she understood it was not peace born of weakness. It was peace built with effort, with control, with pain. Remembered, she thought of her people back home, so eager to conquer, so desperate to prove strength. But if they ever crossed this blue planet with hostile intent, they wouldn't survive the lesson, because Earth was not just strong. Earth was wise, and wisdom is the rarest weapon of all. Valari moved her ship into higher orbit. She had studied Earth's surface, their people, their weapons, and their restraint. But one mystery still pulled at her thoughts. Why did Earth have no visible defense grid in space? Every advanced species built orbital weapons first, but Earth's orbit looked quiet, too quiet. She scanned the upper layers of Earth's orbit carefully. At first, she found nothing unusual, just satellites, weather probes, and communication relays. But when she widened her scan range, something strange appeared. A cloud of metallic objects, thousands of them, silent, cold, drifting slowly like ghosts. She focused her camera on the cluster: old machines, shattered panels, scorched steel, broken antennas. Some still had flags, logos, and markings from long-dead human nations. Others had no markings at all. This wasn't space junk. This was a graveyard. Valari felt a chill run through her. It was a battlefield that never made it into the history records. These were weapons from wars no one talked about, satellites built to destroy, abandoned after peace returned. Some were deactivated nuclear payloads, some were kinetic rods. All of them had one thing in common: they had been shut down. She sent a signal pulse toward one of them, just to test. Nothing responded, but her sensors lit up immediately. A soft energy field surrounded the entire graveyard. It wasn't just a pile of garbage, it was monitored. Earth hadn't forgotten these machines. They were watching them too, always. As her ship drifted near the graveyard edge, a warning flashed on her screen: restricted zone, maintain distance. It came from an unknown source, encrypted, but written in perfect Zarnian. Her heart pounded. They knew her language. They had written this for her. She pulled back, eyes wide. It wasn't just one graveyard. There were 7, each placed above a different continent, some smaller, some massive, each one filled with dormant satellites, decommissioned weapons, and old war tech. And beneath them, nothing, no new weapons, no defense towers, no attack ships, only silence. She whispered, They could have turned space into fire, but instead, they buried their weapons in the sky. She realized something deeper. This graveyard wasn't a mistake, it was a reminder. Earth had placed its weapons where everyone could see them, drifting, broken, dead, not to show power, but to show control. She checked her map again. Hidden among the graveyards were a few active satellites barely moving, barely powered, but her sensors picked up strange signals from them, low energy pulses, like they were whispering to one another. She couldn't decode the language yet. Wasn't Zarnian, and it wasn't human. It was something new, something Earth hadn't shared with anyone. Maybe these were Earth's real defense systems, not weapons, but watchers, listening, learning, waiting. She moved her ship away, slowly, carefully, as she left orbit. A final message flashed across her main screen. Peace is our choice, not our weakness. The sky remembers. She sat in her chair, stunned. This was not the kind of power her people understood. To the Council, strength meant shining weapons and loud threats. But to humans, true strength meant burying the sword and guarding the silence around it. She pressed her recorder again, her voice steady but soft. "This is Valari," she said. "I have found the old war machines of Earth. They are silent, but not forgotten. They float above the world like ghosts, telling a story louder than any cannon. They had the power to destroy their skies, but instead, they built graveyards to remind themselves what happens when fire is left unchecked. And even now, they watch those graveyards. So no one dares to forget." Outside her ship, the stars glittered quietly, and far below, Earth remained peaceful by choice, not by fear. Valari turned away from the screen. She knew now if the galaxy ever forced Earth to raise its weapons again, it wouldn't be a war, it would be a reckoning. Valari sat in silence, staring at the blinking cursor on her message console. The graveyard in orbit, the hidden weapons, the quiet power of humanity, all of it was too much to ignore. She had seen enough, it was time to speak, but the words would not come easily. The Galactic Council had always seen Earth as a wild planet, primitive, emotional, unpredictable. To them, humans were a species still climbing out of their own dirt. Valari used to believe that too, but now she had seen something else, something real. She opened a new encrypted message channel, one reserved for high-level emergencies. Her fingers hovered above the controls. She took a deep breath and began recording. "To the Council of Systems," she said slowly. "This is Scout Valari of Zarn Prime, reporting from Observation Point E9, orbiting planet Earth." She paused, looking out the window at the swirling blue and green world below. "I have completed my study of the human species," she continued, "and I must report a critical update, one that challenges all previous assumptions." She attached visual files, videos of the missile test, footage of the orbital graveyard, voice recordings. Then she added her personal logs, unedited. She knew the Council would question her emotions, but the truth had to come from her as she felt it. Not just facts, but understanding. She continued, "Humans are not weak. They are not savage. They are not behind. In fact," she said, "they may be more advanced than any of us imagined." She leaned forward, her voice growing firmer. "Their weapons surpass Council regulations. Their technology includes systems we believe to be only theoretical, and their restraint is beyond anything I've seen in the core worlds." She paused again, staring at the console. "More importantly," she added, "they know we are watching. They allowed me to see these things. They left messages, direct and indirect. And each message says the same thing. If we provoke them, they will not hold back." A long silence followed. Then she tapped the final command transmit. The message was gone, shooting through space in a beam of light. But before she could relax, something unexpected happened. Her ship began to receive a reply, not from the Council, but from Earth. It was a tight beam signal, perfectly aimed at her location. Again, no hacking, no aggression, just a single file. She opened it carefully, half expecting a virus. But it was a short video blurry, taken from a human facility. In the frame stood a man in a dark uniform, surrounded by quiet machines. He looked directly into the camera and spoke. "If your council is listening," he said, "then listen. Well, we know how this ends. If we're ever attacked, we won't strike back with warnings or speeches. We'll strike back with everything we've hidden. And there won't be a second round." He stepped closer, his face calm but firm. "We're not asking for friendship. We're not asking for fear. We're asking to be left alone." The video ended. No threats, no challenge, just truth. Cold, clear, undeniable truth. Valari sat back, the message ringing in her mind. They had heard her signal to the council. They had answered it. Not with fear, not with pride, but with certainty. She stared out at the stars beyond Earth. How many other scout ships had come here before? How many had left in silence, never understanding the risk they were taking? She activated her ship's defense cloaking again, but this time, not to hide this time. Out of respect, because Earth didn't need to see her, she needed to see Earth. One final thought entered her log. Earth is not preparing for war. They are preparing for us. And when the day comes, if it comes, they won't fight for victory. They will fight for survival. And in doing so, they will erase anyone who threatens their peace. The stars outside Valari's window shimmered like silent witnesses. Her ship floated quietly above Earth, still cloaked, still unseen. Below her, the planet continued its calm rotation, cities glowing, oceans breathing, winds dancing over. Mountains, no alarms, no weapons, no sign of a world preparing for war. And yet, she now understood, this peace was not weakness, it was a choice. The Galactic Council received her message. At first, they laughed. Some called her afraid, others said she was tricked. They believed Earth was a minor world with dangerous toys and no control. But that belief did not last long, because Earth responded. Not with an army, not with threats, but with knowledge. Earth's response was not public. It came through encoded diplomatic channels. It contained no images, no maps, just one short message in hundreds of galactic languages. "Let us live, and we will not harm you. Try to rule us, and you will disappear." The council went silent. For the first time in years, no threats were spoken in the chamber. No plans were made. They had seen enough back aboard her ship. Valari watched Earth's sun rise over the edge of the world. Golden light spread across forests, deserts, seas, and snow. Children walked to school, birds soared, families shared meals, and deep underground, machines slept, unmoving. Waiting only if called, she thought of other planets she had visited. Worlds with flags raised in war, leaders screaming about honor and conquest. But Earth was different. Earth had bled, Earth had learned, and Earth had stopped in a small field. Near a human village, she watched an old man plant a tree. Next to the tree stood a stone marked with named soldiers. Civilians, children, a memorial. The man whispered something to the soil, wiped his tears, and walked away. Valari listened to the translator drone. He had said, "We plant life where we once buried the dead." She closed her eyes, letting those words settle in her mind. That was humanity's real weapon, not missiles, not guns, not hidden satellites. It was memory, it was choice. It was the decision to never go backward. She opened her log one final time. "This is Valari, scout of Zarn Prime," she said. "I am leaving Earth's orbit. But I leave with more than data. I leave with understanding. This planet has the strength to destroy entire fleets, but it chooses silence. It has the power to conquer systems, but it chooses restraint. It has been to the edge of extinction, and instead of falling, it stepped back." She looked down one last time at the blue world below. This planet has chosen peace, and in that choice, it has become more dangerous than any empire I have ever known. She turned her ship toward deep space, but as she prepared to jump into warp, her screen lit up again. A final signal from Earth, a single image, no words. It showed a tree, just like the one planted near the stone. Below it, one human sentence glowed. Remember us not by our weapons, but by what we choose not to use. Valari smiled softly. She had come to observe, but Earth had taught her something greater than fear. It had taught her the value of peace held by those who could destroy everything, but chose not to. As her ship vanished into the stars, she left behind a world that waited in silence, not sleeping, not weak, just watching, and hoping that it would never need to rise, because if it ever did, there would be no second chance, asterisk.